Well, good afternoon, gentlemen. Good afternoon to John Donovan, and welcome to our special guest, Ron Kastner. I'm
Hi
Marty
there.
Keller here in Sacramento, and John's actually visiting here in Sacramento. We could
Yeah.
feel the shift in the force when he got here. It's all good. And our friend Ron is based in London, but he's visiting in New York today, which makes the time difference a little easier for us to dialogue with him. And so always good to be with you, Ron. It's been a while.
Yeah.
So like to check in with you. So what's going on? What brings you to the podcast today?
Well, as you know, and John knows a little bit of, because I sought out his help at some point. At one point a couple months ago. I I was hit by a lawsuit by my ex-wife about almost a year ago now, and it was a niggly thing. It wasn't, it was about child support and this, that, and the other thing. And I don't want to get into the details and what was going on in her life, that caused that to happen. But it hit me on a level that I had not anticipated. And it provoked an enormous amount of anxiety, especially as it got closer and closer to the hearing, the first hearing date, and now we've had a second one. And some of it's just annoying stuff that you got to go through to produce court documents and financial records and this, that, and the other thing. But there was something else going on inside me that I went, whoa, this is not, I'm somebody who has built businesses and had lawyers as clients and been involved in legal disputes, and whatever all my life. I'm a businessman. And this is just not that,
Mhm.
this is something else. And the more and more I worked through it, the more I realized it was my own self-criticism and my own self-attacking, my own lack of worth, and um, on some deeper, much deeper level that started in my childhood, that that this was just dialing up this lawsuit was just dialing up the volume on, but it was my shit and it was my stuff that was fueling it. And I worked at it in therapy. I worked at it on my own. I worked at it, I called John up and said, John, help, you know, and we had a private session for a while, which was very, very helpful. You know, the anxiety you're feeling is not going to kill you. You're not going to die. Take a deep breath. And it was very, very helpful. And we worked through some of the stuff. It it and then the night before the hearing, I had a pretty sleepless night. I mean, I must have slept 3 or 4 hours that night. I was so anxious. I don't remember being that anxious. And I don't know. I just don't know, maybe since 2008 when I had a big financial crisis of my own related to that one. And um, and the night before the hearing, I had this insight, and I said, it this thought came to me. Said, I my lack of self belief and my own self criticism is what's fueling the other side's um, criticism of me. It was a lot of unfair stuff that their lawyers were throwing at me, or lawyers were throwing at me. But as soon as I had that insight, I could say and admit to myself, I am self-critical. I have a dynamic going on inside of me that, for whatever reason and whatever, but I could admit that. I could take a deep breath, and I could say, what do I want instead? Is my intention to love myself throughout these proceedings and in life, and it is my intention. And that, I have to say, that changed everything. the anxiety faded. It didn't go away completely, but I was able to get through the hearing and give the testimony that I needed to give. And I was not, and it was, some of it was, I'm not going to let them get to me. I'm not going to let this dynamic fuel their criticism of me. I am worthwhile. I have self-worth. So that was a big thing. It proceeded, though, about a week or 2 weeks later, that feeling, while the anxiety from the court proceedings dissipated a little bit, it led me to a place where I realized how unloved I felt in my childhood. And there again, I could say, I'm unlovable. I have to admit that. That's how I felt. I'm unlovable. My childhood, the death of my father when I was 7, and the way my mother treated me after that happened, left me with the feeling of being, I just don't count. I just don't count. I'm not involved in any of the stuff, and I have been left out of the process, and I don't feel like I count. So I translated that as unlovable, and the same thing happened. I could admit to myself that I was unlovable, and I could replace that with an intention to be loved and to love myself. So that's the whole thing, and this all has a really nice it's not an ending, but a nice dynamic that happened a couple of weeks ago. I took my older daughter to Vienna, which is where my parents are from, and I've never been there. And it was my birthday, and she's teaching skiing in Austria, so she was able to join me for a few days. And so there I was in the city that my parents grew up in, which they had to leave in 1938 because they were Jewish, and were very lucky to get out because a bunch of Jews didn't make it out. And there I was walking the streets of their hometown, living in their shoes, trying to imagine what it must have been like, with the granddaughter that they never met. And it was a very, very, very reaffirming experience of generations. And I understood a lot more about their predicaments in life that I never had appreciated. I knew the stories, but there was something about walking the same streets and seeing the neighborhoods that they lived in to really have that hit home. So it's been a really nice reaffirming period ever since that. I mean, not to mention the fact that I had a health scare last year with Lyme disease, and I just it's taken me months and months and months to recover, and that seems to be over now. So I'm back to my 100% level of last summer. So all that has been really good. So anyway, so thank you, John.
You're welcome.
And thank you, Marty, because we spoke throughout this time, for the support you've given me. So much appreciated. Much appreciated.
Wow. That when I heard you say you got it, that inside you were unlovable, I just want to put in the context for the people watching that accountability or the truth that underlies all the chaos and drama and that covers it up is a statement of truth with no blame or judgment as you perceive the message given to you by your parents. So I'm unlovable was subconscious. And then when you brought it into the light, your truth, I'm unlovable, no blame, no judgment, it lost power. It it came to the light, and then in that feeling tone of that truth, oh my God, I intend to know that I'm lovable, or whatever it was you said. I intend to be
Yeah.
lovable. I intend, yeah. And that's the transmutation of the subconscious trauma
Yeah.
that is subconscious. We don't know it, and we're adults trying to figure out why am I acting so wacky or anxiety when this is what I do for a living, and I'm finding myself in this situation, just not able to maintain my center. So
Yeah.
yeah, wow, very good.
And I've lived, I'm in my 70s now. I've lived
Yeah,
I've lived my whole life like this.
yeah, yeah,
And it has affected every aspect of my I mean, I was searching for love in everything I did.
yeah,
Everything
yeah,
I did. I was
yeah.
searching for love. I was
Hmm.
searching for that thing that I was missing inside.
Hmm.
And now I've realized that, I didn't have to search outside myself.
Yep.
I had to search inside.
Yeah, 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 yeah. It's like I heard a long time ago the therapist say, "Well, the answer is inside you." And I said, "Well, if it's inside me, why am I paying you money?" It's like, okay,
Yeah.
but I didn't understand that it was deep subconscious beliefs, perceptions, and patterns of behavior that were below my awareness level that simply manifested in whatever the behavior and or condition I found myself. Usually for me, it was mean, violent, um, addicted, codependency, and rife with behaviors that avoided that feeling of unlovable.
Yeah. I have a question for you. The words no blame, no judgment roll off your tongue like it's easy to do.
Yeah, yeah. Isn't that strange?
Oh, no blame,
It's
no
like,
judgment.
oh, no blame, no judgment.
It's
Yeah,
not easy to do.
no, no.
It's not easy to do.
In fact, if you're
Because
trying,
yeah.
if you're trying to do it, it is undoable.
Okay.
So when I lead people to whatever the truth is, I'm unlovable, I'm mean, I'm arrogant, entitled, and simply say the word, the character defect or the
Yep.
truth, and then take a breath. And in the breath, your body's focusing on the chest or the breath. You're not in judgment. So one of the ones that I struggled with being accountable for was mean to the point of cruelty to
Right.
my children. Okay, to my children. It was like, no. But then it's like, no, I'm mean to the point of cruelty to my children. And then I took a deep breath, and there's that truth was in alignment with the trauma that caused the meanness. In other words, it's a validation of what happened, all the myriad of things that I don't remember that happened to me that gave me the perception that people were dangerous, and to keep them away, mean worked.
Yeah.
And nothing of that was conscious on my part. And yet I found myself in this behavior. And when I said the truth about the behavior, no story, no explanation, no judgment or blame, there's this thing that happens in my body. It's a validation of the trauma that caused the need to survive, which is being mean. Okay, all right, thank you. I intend to be a loving, caring, nurturing father. Oh, how do I do that? Well, shit, I don't know. And what I've discovered was that if I'm mean to my children and I own it in the moment, that is a loving, caring, nurturing father. That's the behavior
Mhm.
in that truth moment, no blame, no judgment, is the beginning of the end of that type of behavior, which is a loving, caring, nurturing father.
Yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
my God. And yeah. And I'm glad we have this example to like pick it apart. Because that no blame, no judgment is from my family of origin childhood trauma. Rationalization or thinking about or deducing information, putting it in a category, in a compartment, is all blame and judgment. And that's what my rational mind's for. Only to shut that off, truth, breath.
Yeah.
Oh, and that feeling tone now offers new information for my rational mind to see the difference in what's going on, because that's what the rational mind is, like a knife. It cuts things into pieces.
Yeah.
The subconscious mind is where our intuitive, flowing, imaginal, and inspiration comes from, and it taps into that part of ourselves that. And there's a guy called Ian McGilchrist who wrote a book, The Master and His Emissary. The emissary is the rational mind. The master is the right side of the brain, intuitive, imaginal, inspirational.
And the
And
body.
when the rational, and this is what happens in the family of origin dysfunction, childhood trauma, the rational mind takes control.
Yeah.
And tries to figure this out and puts it in, oh my God, if I hadn't done this, I wouldn't have done this. And if I didn't, when the truth, oh my God, that hurt. And the behavior I adopted to keep myself safe was pushing people away. And there's myriad ways to describe that. One is mean, one is arrogant, entitled, controlling. So that truth, oh no, I want, and there's the rational mind then becomes the emissary of, I want to live it is my intent to be a loving, caring, nurturing father. Okay, cool. Thank you.
You know, it's really
No blame, no judgment.
useful to appreciate the lawfulness of all of this. That you know, one of the things that you say, John, often in meetings and stuff, is that it couldn't have turned out another way. Well, that it couldn't turn out another way is a law. It's a law of human development. And one of the things that I've noticed in the lawfulness that pertains to the conversation we're having is that the thinking mind comes after the emoting body in terms of developmental sequence. So what I've come to understand is that as our thinking mind emerges around the age 4, 5, 6, it's actually it's emerging out of that emotional body, and therefore it's been trained by that emotional body. So that thought pattern is automatically created to support the emotional belief system. Well, the belief, it's not a belief, obviously, but let's call it the defense mechanism. Mean, unlovable, whatever it is. And then so the mind just, like, it seems natural to to engage in that kind of self dialogue. Everything that my mind is producing is designed to keep me safe without any rational insight into what the heck is actually going on. It's just going along for the ride because it's been trained to do that. And so what we're doing in this work is we're essentially using that exact same mechanism, but we're retraining the mind, like you just said. And it starts with the body. It always starts with, how do I feel? And so once I get that emotional state, then my mind is trainable to the new intent, to be thinking thoughts about the new intention. So for me, I intend to create a world of joy, peace, freedom, community, and health. My mind is now following those instructions.
Yes.
And it notices when it starts out, first of all, by noticing when that's not occurring. So I now have separation in my mind from the old thought pattern. I can see the old thought pattern because it still recurs. But now it's like, oh, there it is. What do I want? Or there it is. What's going on? What am I not seeing? I'm feeling agitated. I'm feeling stressed. Okay. Nothing around me seems particularly stressful. What's going on?
Right.
And so I can open dialogue with myself, or if we want to use the language of ACA, Adult Children of Alcoholics, I open dialogue with that inner kid and find out what's still troubling him. And then I can take it on. Oh, I'm agitated. I'm lonely. I'm afraid.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's take, and then that deep breath and just get in touch with everything that's going on without blame or judgment. Just be with it,
Yeah.
which is the act of unconditional love that I've been looking for my whole life. And
In
and
my
to give it to
case,
myself is pretty simple and straightforward. Go ahead, Ron.
I just going to say, in my case, it also was preceded by a long period of just trying to tolerate what I was feeling inside. And had I not done that, had I tried to, and believe me, I did try to, I mean, I went to the gym, worked, did a big workout to try to feel better. I did this, I did that. Had I not stuck with the anxiety and said, wait a minute, there's a message here that I need to get to the bottom of. Even if it means asking for help, which I'm not very good at.
Yeah, I know that one.
And I like to do everything myself. And but it was just sticking with it. It was just like, all right, there's something going on here that is, and all the explanations and all them trying to dodge it and all the trying to, everything else were not, all the rationalizations were just not working,
Mm-hmm.
were just not working. So, but there again, I realized that I had felt this way many times in my past, and either I would, call somebody up and say, "Hey, let's go out to dinner, or let's get drunk, let's do this, let's do," and it says, "Oh, yeah, I was feeling pretty shitty, but now I'm feeling better now."
Yeah.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
so I never got to the source code, as they say.
I liked it when you said the anxiety had a message for me. All
Yeah.
feeling tones are information, trying to poke through to that balanced mind, the left hemisphere, right hemisphere. All emotions, all feeling tones are simply offering me information about my safety in relationship to my environment, my perceived environment.
Yeah.
And the feeling body is so nuanced and sophisticated that I really need to pay attention to the feeling tone, where, how, intensity, what, because it's offering me information about what's happening in my current reality.
Mm-hmm.
And I had this incident, I won't go through the details, but I was feeling anxious, inadequate, stupid. So I go and I went over this situation about 4, 10, 1,200 times. And I go, oh, there it is. There it is. Okay. So I laid on my bed and I said, what's the feeling? And my arms were tingly and my chest was tight. Then I'd go into the story and then, whoa, whoa, whoa. I brought it back to the arms are tingly, chest is tight. And I kept breathing and I stayed there. I don't know how long. I'm thinking 10, 15, 20 minutes, but probably only 3 or 4. And I kept repeating body sensation, arms tingling. And then it dawned on me, what happened to me as a child is that I got afraid of feeling alive.
Mm-hmm.
And at that moment, I was aware of my current situation, which was, I want to say, embarrassing, awkward, which is doable. It's like, that's doable. And the information coming to me was that anytime I felt alive, adventurous, spontaneous as a child, it was chastised, humiliated, ridiculed, or traumatized somehow, ostracized. So the feeling of I'm alive on this planet became the enemy. So any feeling, I went to shame, inadequacy, guilt, which is a descriptor of not feeling.
Yep.
So, yeah. And sometimes it's very difficult to feel alive in the current. I mean, there's tragedy happens, there's things that have financial things, crisis, all these things, but in the feeling of aliveness, I can be proactive in all of that.
Yep.
Where my conditioning trained me to not feel. I shouldn't feel anxious. I'm 70 years old. I should be able to handle this, all the criticism and head talk story about it.
Well, it's also, you talk a lot about the 7/8 and the 1/8 or the 90%, 10%, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
And the stuff that's below the iceberg
Yep.
is where all your health is as well.
Yes.
It's the system that keeps you alive.
Yeah.
And what I keep coming back to, it's my life now. It's what, I've written a book about um, and practice at every day is, what is it that promotes that healing? Because it's a constant process of healing.
Mm-hmm.
What goes on inside you, whether it's maintenance, whether it's your immune system, cleaning you up, whether it's restoring, organs that have been damaged, whether it's a cut that all of a sudden, you don't have to do anything to heal.
Right.
Your body will do it as long as you're not getting in the way. And the stuff about the emotional blocks and the rationalization and everything else is that stuff gets in the way.
Yeah.
That stuff gets in the way. And that, Gabor Mate and a bunch of other people, Christine, what's her name? Christine Northrup, I think, and a bunch of other people have written books about that, the level of trauma that we have inside us. And more to the point, the level of trauma that we don't address, that we keep on allowing to happen, is one of the things that makes us sick.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And it, this was a big thing for me, saying, I have lived with this for a long time. I hope I haven't done any damage.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. So we'll see.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see.
In our gut check meeting for the last few weeks, we've been watching a brief video about the autonomic nervous system, and particularly the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous systems.
Right.
And just watching these brief videos, I learned a lot. But one of the things that it underscored is the way that these two systems, so the sympathetic nervous system is the stressed side of our nervous system, and the parasympathetic is the relaxed side.
Mm-hmm.
And to put it very, very briefly and probably vulgarly, but what the commentator was saying is that, the body's always looking for homeostasis. So if I'm in too much stress, the parasympathetic nervous system, the brain basically instructs the parasympathetic nervous system to take over and relax the sympathetic. And he said, so when we are generating stress that's beyond what's in front of us, this is what we're talking about,
Right.
then we'll overwhelm the parasympathetic system, and it won't be able to do what it's designed to do, and we'll be out of balance.
Yep.
And what made me think of that is your comment about, we've lived with this for years and years and years. I lived with hypervigilance and anxiety and addiction to drama for years and years and years, which puts wear and tear on not just the systems of my body, but the immune system itself, which is our defense against disease, organisms that invade us regularly, and even cancers.
Yeah.
The immune system, when it's healthy, is getting rid of cancerous cells all the time.
Absolutely.
So they never become they never could start dominating.
As well as plaques, and whether it's in the brain or the heart or anywhere. Yeah. Yeah.
So the value of this work, I'm starting to understand more and more the relationship, as you were saying, Ron, between the physical health and the psychological health. Basically, two words for the same activity.
Yeah. Yep. And both are essential. Both are essential, you know.
Exactly.
I mean, I have it's interesting that you mentioned there is a measure of the balance of the parasympathetic and the sympathetic system called heart rate variability. And I take, as part of my health practice, I take a heart rate variability reading every morning. And it tells me, you know, if I had a particularly hard day the day before, if I went to the gym and really beat myself up, it'll be, my heart rate variability will be low, you know, because my body is recovering, and my sympathetic side will be high because my body's recovering, you know, and that's the part of your body that, you know, that responds to stress,
Right.
like you said. So, but you know, you can find parasympathetic and sympathetic just in your breathing. The inhale is the sympathetic. It always feels more relaxing to exhale. That's the parasympathetic. And the same happens in your heart. You know, the two different beats of your heart, that's what heart rate variability is. It's the difference between your heartbeat at the top of the beat when you're inhaling and the bottom, which is when you're exhaling. So probably more detail than we need, but it's all, when I'm stressed, my heart rate variability goes down, you know,
So
Well,
for any reason.
what I know about the heart rate is like this sign, the heart rate variability. What I'm getting from this, and I don't need to get everything, but the variability is less, and the higher the variability, that's what I'm seeing.
The higher the variability, the better.
Okay, I got you. All right.
Okay. In other words, if on your inhale, your heart rate goes up, and your exhale, it goes down, you're able to process stress better because your system, both your systems are in balance, and they're both strong.
Okay,
If it's weak, if it's in the middle,
gotcha.
then they're too aligned and too, you know, you really want them to be strong. You want them to both be powerful, both
Okay.
of those systems.
well, one of the insights I had in starting to learn about this thing is that the accountability tree practice also engages these two systems.
Yep.
So as I move toward, I'm mean to the point of cruelty, or I love being in debt, my sympathetic stress system is up there. I'm in full alert defense. This is where no blame, no judgment becomes difficult, because when I'm highly stressed, blame and judgment comes in as part of the deal.
It's fight or flight. Yeah.
Exactly. But then, as John says, when I say, okay, I own that I'm mean beyond the point of cruelty, and the body relaxes into the truth,
Yep.
we've engaged the parasympathetic system.
Yep.
And that sense that I've seen in people, I've done it myself, then people break out into a sense of that our faces start glowing, and we're so relieved and relaxed, and that's boom, we're back to homeostasis.
Yeah.
So it's interesting, John, that the process that you created, I'm sure you totally designed it this way, is engaging
I'm blessed with
those
this
systems.
information, and we're sorting it out.
The
And
fact that the fact that it coheres with 3 billion years of life, you know, it's just an accident.
and I wanted to heal, and it was my focus to figure this out for me so that I could
Yep.
have a moment of peace. Okay. And when I tell the truth, I mean the point of cruelty, take the breath, and all this is happening. I wrap it up with an intent at that place where my parasympathetic is open to hearing. It is my intent to be kind. Boom. It has now got a new directive, a new frame of reference, point of reference, and that is what manifests in my life. It's been manifesting in my life all along based on the trauma. I'm addict, codependent, avoidant behavior. I do this healing. I'm finding myself kind, introspective. Oh, I see the difference between either I'm present now in the moment, or I'm stuck in one of these criticisms, and I take a breath and go, I feel anxious, scared. Oh my God. I intend to heal. And it just keeps getting better and better and better.
Yep.
Wow.
It's as if we send, in fact, we're doing this. We're sending a command to the brain to
Man.
to give the sympathetic system, the stressor system, permission to stand down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. I like that. I like the
well
way
put.
you,
Well put. Yeah.
yeah.
and therefore to have that, to let the parasympathetic system do its task. One of the things that was very instructive for me, and you guys probably knew this, but he said that the sympathetic system, the stressor system, is an all hands on deck system. It affects the entire body, whereas the parasympathetic system affects specific organs like the heart, like the stomach, like the guts. And so again, when we start letting the sympathetic system, the stressor system, stand down, what that means is it's standing down across the entire body, from the bottom of our feet to the tip of our heads. And the parasympathetic system is now engaging the organs that generate, like gut. My gut feels relaxed, as opposed to, Ron, earlier you were talking about that anxiety that you were experiencing the night before the hearing, and the gut sense being so acute is part of that stressor system, and the inability at that time for the other side to just calm it down,
Yeah.
because it's a full body, everything's on alert, adrenaline hits everything, and acetylcholine and all those other hormones that are the ways that the sympathetic, the two systems carry their workout in the body.
Yeah. I want to mention one thing. From a health standpoint, occasional stress and occasional is important. Nature invented both of those aspects of our bodies. What robs us of our health is the chronic low-level stress, this kind of stuff that is connected to emotional stuff, chronic low-level stuff that can come from a bad diet, can come from lack of exercise, it can come from all kinds of things. But this kind of emotional stuff is really one of the key causes, because if you have a trauma-related level of anxiety inside you and it's there all the time and it hasn't been worked on, that's the worst thing that can happen to, you know.
Yeah, I agree. Wow.
Well, the irony is that
occasional stress is a good thing.
Absolutely. And the irony is that the opposite is just as bad. So I don't know if this analogy works, John. You have more expertise in this, but it seems to me that when we take euphoric drugs as a way of shifting the stress, we're actually so stimulating the parasympathetic system that the stress system is basically repressed.
Yeah.
So there's no capacity to have homeostasis, which is that these two things are in balance and they behave as necessary.
Yeah, that's right.
That natural flow, I think, that you were just referring to.
Yeah.
One of the things I have that I presented, the 4 constants of relationship, I'll just go through them briefly. Focus, attention is the first one. Your body has a focus. If you're not having a conscious intent or focus, then your trauma body is like ruined. The other one is own your projections. The one I want to talk about right now is that occasional stress is helpful. It's like a tree that doesn't feel the wind becomes really weak and will just fall over. Okay. So the occasional stress is, I feel depressed. Well, in our society, that's a Paxil time, or that's some kind of re-up intake inhibitor time, instead of taking a look at your life and seeing that, wow, what's happening to me is depressing. And then being with that, being in whatever your life is, feeling that feeling, could be anxiety, could be panic, could be low-level anxiety, and say, I feel this. Oh yeah, because when I feel it and recognize it, I can then become proactive in it. And the proaction is what I wasn't able to do as a child. I was stuck in this reaction mode, fight, flight, freeze, and for me, mostly freeze and please. And I was stuck because if I just stood up and said, fuck you people, I'm out of here, that would have been a life I didn't have the wherewithal, number one. And I didn't have a guide to tell me that the feeling I was in was appropriate for what's going on around me, and that I'm learning to self-regulate, frustration tolerance. I'm learning all these things. It's not I have to know these things as a child, and that was what was expected of me, to have frustration tolerance, not to get angry, not to scream, not to be loud. And what this process of accountability gives me in the moment is that guide, that loving parent that said, yes, I see you're upset. Yes, I see you're frustrated. Yes, I see you're angry. Yes, I see you're afraid. And being okay, no blame, no judgment. I'm going to move. For me, sometimes I'm going to go get some Haagen-Dazs because I feel like this is a Haagen-Dazs day. Although those are few and far between now. And just be okay with myself. Just I'm a human being who feels stress, and then I can feel that stress and move to resolution as an adult. I couldn't do that as a child.
Right.
So
Ron turned me on to a book. I think it's Richard Lieberman, about the history of the body.
Daniel. Yeah.
Remember the title of that?
Yeah, Daniel Lieberman. It's
Daniel,
called,
right?
yeah, it's called The History of the Human Body. Yeah.
Thank you.
got it.
So it's a heck of a read, because the question that Lieberman is asking is, what did the human body, what were the adaptations that became the human body? What were they for?
Yeah.
And I haven't finished the book, so I don't know if there's an answer, or if he's come up with one.
Well, and I've been reading the book that you recommended when I told you about that one, which is The Hunter-Gatherer's Guide to the 21st Century.
Okay.
Which is which is also good. Same thing, you know. They go into things like they go into things like the appendix. They say obviously the appendix, is not an unuseful organ. It's there. It needed to be there. And apparently they have now come up with the thing that it is a repository of a lot of good bacteria for your gut. So when occasionally your gut got cleaned out, either from sickness or whatever, that was the place that replenished it.
Oh, wow.
So it's if possible, it is not a good idea to take it out.
Right.
So
maybe your tonsils are the same thing.
Yeah.
Probably.
But part of the reason I raise it is because evolution is ongoing, and so I believe that the work that we're doing is essentially experimenting with new adaptations. The adaptation is the possibility of generating unconditional love intentionally.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
through the generation of unconditional love intentionally, shifting the body's stress levels, giving the regulatory systems that generate homeostasis back their power.
Yeah. Well, I think also, if you look back at human history, the day that we say that much of human history were people's projections of their inner life on the outer world, I think that's going to be, we can say that because we see it a lot. Yep. But the day that a large portion of society can say that is going to be a wow moment on a big level.
I thought what Marty just said was a mic drop. We got two mic drops right there. It's like, yes, there's something we're not seeing. It's an awareness that's going to bring us into a new everything. Yes. Oh my God. Wow.
Yeah. Well, I remember asking you once, John, how much of daily human life do you think is projection of your inner state, and how much is the real observing and experiencing the outer world? And my my answer was like, well, it's definitely north of 50%, probably 60, 70, 80, whatever. And you just very confidently said 100%.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
That was a moment. That was a moment. And I think you're right.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
Well,
and
it's,
as you guys know, I've written a book which asks the question, so that what tends to happen when we get that realization is, oh my God, I'm stuck in this internal thing and I'm projecting out there, and but it's not, it is and it isn't individual. It's also all of us.
Yeah.
I mean, we are born into a culture, and that culture is what we that's how our individual sense of what will be projected gets formed.
Yeah.
mhm.
So it's not like who was it? John Locke's notion of a tabula rasa, that we're born in as we're just a complete blank slate. Well, no, we're not.
No.
No.
We're actually a slate of, how far back do you want to go? Ron said 3 billion years. That's life cycle.
Yeah. Yeah.
You want to go 100,000 years? That's human. That's Homo sapiens. I mean, however far back you want to go, we are the leading edge of that evolutionary dynamic.
Yeah.
I personally like to go back 13.9 billion years to the Big Bang.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. That could be.
And interestingly enough, there's evidence coming out of the recently launched James Webb Space Telescope, anomalies showing up where they're contradicting the standard model of the universe, forcing
Yeah.
us to rethink that again.
Yep.
Yeah. I think that's
Wow.
that's going to definitely be rewritten. The
And
Big
that's
Bang.
exciting to me.
Yeah, of course. The Big Bang's going to be rewritten.
Well, we're writing our little corner of it.
Exactly.
Where it's like, okay, no, I don't accept this anymore. This is my, and I'm gonna give this information to as many people as possible and show as many
Well,
times.
it's just a whole new way of experiencing the world
Yeah.
that was not available before, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
And it
Well,
wasn't, I mean, until Freud and, and the 150 years ago, and that whole new thing started about the subconscious.
Mm-hmm.
Wasn't this, I mean, people had an inkling that that stuff happens inside us that we didn't quite understand, but the world was out here. It
Right.
wasn't in here.
Right.
Well, we projected that outward. We believed in demons and devils and
Yep,
Satan. That's
absolutely.
all that stuff is those internal energies projected outward and created as entities.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
that sense that John's starts his meetings with. Have you ever been in an argument where you thought you knew you were right, and then you realized you were wrong, and you still stuck to your line anyway? And those other two
Mm-hmm.
things that you say. In the
Mm-hmm.
old days, people would have said the devil's got me.
Right.
It's the
Yeah.
devil's fault. It's like I have no control,
Right.
and let's
Yeah.
go burn the witches.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or somebody else made me do it,
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
which still happens. So,
Well, I'm always in this work. I'm always reminded of that Marianne Williamson quote about our greatest fear. Our greatest fear is not that we are broken, or however she has it, but our greatest fear is that we're more powerful beyond belief.
Right.
And I can get why a little kid. Let's talk about little Marty. Little Marty growing up in his alcoholic family with people dying and all those kinds of things would be afraid of power, because it seems so A, overwhelming, and B, it doesn't create wonderful things. It
No.
creates sad and difficult things.
Mm-hmm.
But here we are in this work. We're learning to claim that power. This is incredible power. Ron, what you went through over the course of those 2 weeks, and all the work that you did leading up to that, obviously, is a claiming of a power,
absolutely.
because that was inside of you all the time. This wasn't John didn't give this to you. You didn't get it from some Martians who happened by Hyde Park. This is something that was always part of you.
And over the past few days, it's gotten even more powerful. Because I started thinking, well, what is it, now that I've been through this, what is it that I really want? And I said, I want someone to believe in me,
Mm.
And then I said, well, I want to believe in myself.
There you go. Wow.
And that's what was missing from my childhood. I had a dad who checked out, not when I was 7, who checked out early. And I had a mom who didn't take it very well. And I just wasn't part of the, I felt left out.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody to believe in me,
Wow, Ron.
And
Wow.
and that has come to me now as a reaffirming, yeah, I can believe in myself.
Well, and the irony is that until I believe in myself, it doesn't matter how many people actually do believe in me,
I know.
because I won't feel it as true.
Yeah.
Right.
I'll be suspicious of it. I'll be seeing it through the lens of, in your case, I'd be seeing it through the lens of unlovability.
Yep.
Oh,
Absolutely.
they're just saying that.
Yeah.
Or they'll change their
Yeah,
mind when they find out.
I couldn't take compliments for most of my life.
Right.
It felt very uncomfortable. So
I'm sure nobody else here has been afflicted by that.
oh no.
Yeah. Who, me? Okay.
Anyway.
Now what I find is that when someone gives me a compliment, I get a charge, but it isn't that big. It's just kind of, oh, thanks. What I now apprehend is I feel that I'm in a connection with that person. I feel like that the compliment is partly a projection of that person's own capability that they're complimenting me for. And that,
Well,
like, yeah, we're together in that.
yeah.
My Solomon, my grandson, I'll tell him, "Oh, you did that really well." He goes, "I know, Grandpa." Yeah, right on. Yeah, it's really cool. Really cool.
Love it. That's the way I feel about my daughters.
Mm-hmm.
It's lovely to see them with a, with a self. They're in command of themselves as they're getting older and and approaching life.
Yeah.
Sort of, they have a compass inside,
Yeah.
a barometer, a gyroscope that seems very healthy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So doesn't get much better than that, raising good kids or grandkids.
Mm-hmm.
And seeing that, that they have been able to, I mean, in Solomon's case, or in, my case, they have been able to grow as nature intended without the, like you use your tree analogy. When the wind comes, they feel it and they react,
Yeah. Yep.
And it's, it's not somebody saying, oh, don't do this and don't do that. You're allowed to be who you are.
Yep.
So,
yeah.
And there again, going back to my example, in believing in them.
Yeah.
I have believed in my daughters since the day that they were born, and they know it,
Yeah.
So even though I didn't feel it in myself, working with them has allowed that to happen to them. For them.
Yeah. Very good.
Yep.
Well, we're coming to the end of our time together, unfortunately. And so before we wrap things up, Ron, I'd just like to see if there's any last minute thoughts or summarizing thoughts you might like to share with us.
Not really, just that this work is endless, and it is not always easy, but it is extremely life affirming, and I'm very happy to be on this ride.
Yeah.
Very happy to be on this ride. So
Very happy to be on it with you.
Yeah.
So, Mr. D,
Yes.
as always, we'll love to leave you with the last word.
I appreciate dialoguing with people who can put into their own words this process, because it's sometimes it's counterintuitive and yet effective. And all the talk about parasympathetic and sympathetic, and it was very helpful for me today. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, John. As always, thank you. I have this little list of John Donovanisms that have made a difference in my life, and one of them is I give myself permission to. Or it's a 4-word introductory sentence, and it's all the difference in the world, because let's go back to what we were talking about throughout the course of this dialogue. Is I give myself permission to is an act of unconditional love, and that's all I want.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I want. And it's amazing how something that simple can have that power. So I'm grateful to you, John, for all the insights that you come up with, and that you are willing to let us shamelessly steal and apply in our own lives.
Okay.
So as we
You're
bring this
welcome.
time together to a close, I'd like to just invite anybody who's been watching this, whether it's your first time or you've watched all, I don't know how many episodes, 150 episodes of this Intentional Living podcast. Feel free to join us for the Intentional Living meetings. There are 4 every week. They're all on Zoom, and there's Monday nights, Wednesday afternoons, Thursday nights, Saturday mornings, all Pacific time. And if you'd like to get the Zoom address to join us, please shoot me or John a note. Our contact information will be on the screen at the end of the podcast, and we'd love to have you. If you come to a meeting, you don't have to do anything. You don't have to participate. You can just come and listen.
Mm-hmm.
But we didn't get to this conversation, but there's power in the group. There's power. The group is an accelerator of recovery. We can do it on our own, or we can do it one-on-one, and each of those ways has value. And doing this in a group setting has a particular value. So everyone is invited. If you're somebody that's been to a meeting but haven't been for a while, come on back. We miss you. And if you're new, come on and join us. We'd love to have you. So as always, thanks, Ron, for sharing your journey with us. And John, thank you. And we'll see you all next time.
You got it. Thank you, Marty. Love you.
You bet. Love you too.
Bye.